By now, our society has come to grasp the reality that workplace safety and health are not limited to the physical body alone. The health of your mind is an equally critical element that deserves the same care and training we seek to provide for physical injury and illness. And by now, you should know that I'm not afraid to address these difficult topics because these are real subjects that need a healthy discussion. I may not always address them perfectly, but that certainly won't stop me from seeking to make a positive impact with each of the trainings we do. But listen, what I want each of you to know right now in this very moment is that you are cared for and you are valued. Having worked as a counselor and a social worker for several years prior to me getting into the field of safety and health, I dealt very closely with the harsh realities of suicide and those that live with the constant burden of feeling inadequate or worthless. I've also dealt with it very closely in my own family. In those situations and with those individuals, I can tell you firsthand that regardless of their feelings or their perception, or even the truly horrible circumstances many of them have lived through, they were cared for and they were valued just like you are. As we progress through the years, as the conversations about mental illness have drastically opened up, and as we've learned the truth that some individuals are more predisposed to depression, anxiety, and various forms of mood disorders, we know that we need to have conversations like this in the workplace. There are many reasons to dig into this subject, but a recent CDC study shows that construction and industrial workers are at a higher risk for suicide than many other occupational groups. They believe this can be partly explained by much of the current prejudice associated with mental health conditions and a workplace culture that discourages individuals from seeking help. To go even further in detail, I want you to see the occupational groups that have the highest rates of suicide. For men, construction and extraction jobs such as carpenters, electricians, and miners was number one. Number two was in arts, design, entertainment, sports, and media, which typically includes jobs such as illustrators, tattooists, and professional athletes. Third was installation, maintenance and repair that consist of jobs such as mechanics, cable installers, and commercial divers. There are also high rates amongst military and first responders. Though men have a much higher rate of suicide, women are certainly not excluded. The number one occupational category for suicide among women is arts, design, entertainment, sports, and media, which, as we discussed with men, includes jobs such as illustrators, animators, tattooists, and professional athletes. Number two for women is protective service, which includes jobs such as police officers, private investigators, and TSA workers. Third on this list are those in healthcare support, which include jobs such as dental assistants, massage therapists, and pharmacy aides. Now, the reason I tell you this is because every one of these stats represents a human being and the loved ones they've left behind. And why we need to talk about this more than ever is because from 2000 to 2016, the US suicide rate among working aged adults of 16 to 64 increased 34%, from 12.9 per 100,000 population to 17.3. This is a trend that's moving in the wrong direction. And the CDC states that better understanding of how suicides are distributed by occupational group might help inform prevention programs and policies. Because many adults spend a substantial amount of their time at work, the workplace is an important but underutilized location for suicide prevention. They go on to say that workplaces could potentially benefit from suicide prevention activities. Additional and tailored prevention approaches might be necessary to support workers at higher risk. Current workplace suicide prevention efforts have focused primarily on early detection and intervention through the training of individuals, or what they call gatekeepers, to identify those at risk for suicide and refer them to supporting services. And honestly, that is what we're seeking to do here in this training. And though limited in its scope, my hope is that this training can spark a conversation amongst your team that goes far beyond the limited ability of this digital training. But that said, there are still some critical tools I want to provide you with while I have your attention. We're going to discuss the risk factors of suicide, the warning signs of those at risk, and I'm also going to provide you with 5 very effective how-to strategies to immediately talk to and help one of your coworkers get the help they need. It's often believed that suicides are sudden or unexpected. Though there may be some truth to that, it's often a matter of not knowing the signs of someone struggling with suicidal thoughts. So, as you hear the list of some of the most common risk factors and warning signs, I want you to think about ways you can either, number one, find someone you trust within your organization to confide in, such as a supervisor or HR manager, if you are experiencing any of these warning signs yourself. And number two, I want you to be willing to be a gatekeeper or a support for these individuals you work with that are dealing with these risk factors and warning signs. We'll talk about some specific ways you can help in just a bit, but I want you to already begin opening your mind to being an advocate for them. That doesn't mean taking on their burden. It simply means allowing yourself to be someone that can reassure them that they're a valued human being and that there's hope for them through the numerous resources available. Okay, so as I read this list of risk factors, I want you to really hear each of these items, not as a group of words being read out loud, but rather a life story that is linked to a friend, mother, father, son, daughter, and human being just like you and I. So the common risk factors for suicide are mental disorders, particularly mood disorders, schizophrenia, anxiety disorders, and certain personality disorders, alcohol and other substance abuse disorders, the feeling of hopelessness, impulsive and or aggressive tendencies, a history of trauma or abuse, major physical illnesses, a previous suicide attempt, a family history of suicide, the loss of a job or financial loss, loss of relationships, easy access to lethal means, local clusters of suicide, a lack of social support, and a sense of isolation and feeling alone, the stigma associated with asking for help, a lack of healthcare access, especially mental health and substance abuse treatment, some cultural and religious beliefs, such as the belief that suicide is a noble resolution of a personal dilemma, and personal exposure to others who have died by suicide, whether that be in real life or via the media and internet. So those are the common risk factors, but I also want to point out the common warning signs so you can be looking for these on someone's behalf. They are talking about wanting to die, looking for a way to kill oneself, talking about feeling hopeless or having no purpose, talking about feeling trapped or being in unbearable pain, talking about being a burden to others, increasing the use of alcohol or drugs, acting anxious, agitated or recklessly, sleeping too little or too much, withdrawing or feeling isolated, showing rage or talking about seeking revenge, and displaying extreme mood swings. Please realize that these warning signs don't mean someone is definitely going to commit suicide. Just the same way a physical symptom doesn't mean you necessarily have a specific type of injury or illness. But just as we covered in the sexual harassment training, if you see something, say something to the individual that is showing these warning signs. And going beyond that, in the next section, I'm going to lay out 5 effective ways you can help an individual that's going through this. But first, I wanted to share this powerful video called Choose to Stay. If you're one of the individuals that feels these same struggles, I want to encourage you, as the video says, to decide to tell someone you trust how you really feel, to bring everything hidden into the light, trusting that like thousands of others, you too can get the help that you need.
I remember when my father asked me to stay up all night to watch fireflies. I didn't want to, but he was right. It was the most magical thing I'd seen. My mother asked me to stay patient until the chickens got here. I just wanted to pull them out of their eggs and play. I was so glad I waited. This kid I knew asked me to stay on his team. We lost the game, but he became my best friend. And when I became a teenager, everyone kept telling me to stay. Stay focused, stay out of trouble, stay faithful. And all I could think of was the stress, the pressure, the expectations. The things I used to be excited about now seem nothing like I'd imagined. Pointless. heavy. And then people asked, "How are you?" And I said, "Fine." And people said, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And I said, "No." I tried to smile and hide my darkness. I remember waking up on my 17th birthday, wanting to end my life because I felt so much pain, because I felt nothing. So I decided to tell others how I feel. Bring everything hidden into the light, because I knew one of them could help. I remember my dad holding me, my mom and my sister. Now they ask me to stay around for another moment, for another agonizing week, month, even if I couldn't see that tomorrow will get better. And I realized that somewhere in between my new, dark existence and all those beautiful moments that I've experienced in the past, I forgot something. I didn't have to stay alone. The pain doesn't fully go away. It still takes many endless conversations, therapy, prayers, medication. But as time goes on, I choose to stay hopeful. I choose to stay, to experience small, simple things I love, to see new places, meet new people, to discover who I am, to be surprised, to be loved. You can choose to stay too.
There are a number of incorrect assumptions about openly asking someone if they are thinking about suicide. Some of the common misconceptions have to do with a fear of planting a seed in someone's mind about suicide. This is far from the truth, and that is why the very first thing you can do to help someone is to ask. Asking the question, "Are you thinking about suicide?" communicates that you're open to speaking about suicide in a non-judgmental and supportive way. Asking in this direct, unbiased manner can open the door for effective dialogue about their emotional pain and can allow everyone involved to see what next steps need to be taken. Other questions you can ask might include, "How do you hurt?" and "How can I help?" An important point to make here is that you should never promise to keep their thoughts of suicide a secret. This doesn't allow them to access the help they truly need and ends up putting much of the burden on yourself, which is also not healthy for you. Now, the flip side of the ask step is to listen. Make sure you take their answers seriously and don't ignore them, especially if they indicate they are experiencing thoughts of suicide. Listening to their reasons for being in such emotional pain, as well as listening for any potential reasons they want to continue to stay alive, are both incredibly important when they are telling you what's going on. Help them focus on their reasons for living and avoid trying to impose your reasons for them to stay alive. Studies have shown that asking at-risk individuals if they are suicidal does not increase suicides or suicidal thoughts. In fact, studies suggest the exact opposite, that not talking about it may in fact increase suicidal ideation. The second thing you can do is ensuring you're keeping them safe. First of all, it's good for everyone to be on the same page. After the ask step and you've determined suicide is indeed being talked about, it's important to find out a few things to establish immediate safety. Have they already done anything to try to kill themselves before talking with you? Does the person experiencing thoughts of suicide know how they would kill themselves? Do they have a specific, detailed plan? What's the timing for their plan? What sort of access do they have to their planned method? Knowing the answers to each of these questions can tell us a lot about the imminence and severity of danger the person is in. For instance, the more steps and pieces of a plan that are in place, the higher their severity of risk and their capability to enact their plan might be. Or if they have immediate access to a firearm or very serious about attempting suicide, then extra steps like calling the authorities or driving them to an emergency room might be necessary. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline can always act as a resource during these moments as well, if you aren't entirely sure what to do next. I'll provide that information here in just a bit, but regarding this idea of keeping them safe, the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health notes that reducing a suicidal person's access to highly lethal means or chosen method for a suicide attempt is an important part of suicide prevention. A number of studies have indicated that when lethal means are made less available or less deadly, suicide rates by that method decline, and frequently suicide rates overall decline. Research also shows that method substitution or choosing an alternate method when the original method is restricted frequently does not happen. So this myth, if someone really wants to kill themselves, they'll find a way to do it, often does not hold true if appropriate safety measures are put into place. The Keep Them Safe step is really about showing support for someone during the times when they have thoughts of suicide by putting time and distance between the person and their chosen method, especially methods that are more lethal like firearms and medications. The third thing you can do is to simply be there. This could mean being physically present for someone, speaking with them on the phone when you can, or any other way that shows support for the person at risk. An important aspect of this step is to make sure you follow through with the ways in which you say you'll be able to support the person. Do not commit to anything you are not willing or able to accomplish. If you are unable to be physically present with someone with thoughts of suicide, talk with them to develop some ideas for others who might be able to help as well. Again, only others who are willing, able, and appropriate to be there. Listening is again very important during this step. Find out what and who they believe will be the most effective sources of help. Being there for someone with thoughts of suicide is life-saving. Increasing someone's connectedness to others and limiting their isolation, both in the short and long term, has shown to be a proactive factor against suicide. Studies show that connectedness is one of suicide's main components, specifically a low sense of belonging and feeling connected. When someone experiences this state paired with a self-perception of being a burden, and when they're at a point when they exhibit a low fear of death and habituated experiences of violence, their risk can become severely elevated. Connectedness is a key protective factor, not only against suicide as a whole, but in terms of the escalation of thoughts of suicide into acting on those thoughts. Research has also shown that connectedness acts as a buffer against hopelessness and psychological pain. By being there, we have a chance to alleviate or even eliminate some of these significant factors. The fourth thing you can do is to help them connect. Be willing to help someone with thoughts of suicide connect with ongoing supports, like the Lifeline, because it can help them establish a safety net for those moments when they find themselves in a crisis. Additional components of a safety net might be connecting them with supports and resources in their communities. Explore some of these possible supports with them. Are they currently seeing a mental health professional? Have they in the past? Is this an option for them currently? Are there any mental health resources in the community that can effectively help? Are there any programs offered through your employer that could help get them on this path? One way to start helping them find ways to connect is to work with them to develop a safety plan. This can include ways for them to identify if they start to experience significant, severe thoughts of suicide, along with what to do in those crisis moments. A safety plan can also include a list of individuals to contact when a crisis occurs. The My3 app is a safety planning and crisis intervention app that can help develop these supports and is stored conveniently on your smartphone for quick access. Studies show that individuals that call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline were significantly more likely to feel less depressed, less suicidal, less overwhelmed, and more hopeful by the end of calls handled by trained counselors. These improvements were linked to interventions including listening without judgment, exploring reasons for living, and creating a network of support. All very powerful tools to connect your coworkers or loved ones with if they need help. The fifth and final thing you can do after your initial contact with the person experiencing thoughts of suicide, and after you've connected them with the immediate support systems they need, is to make sure you follow up with them to see how they're doing. Leave a message, send a text, or give them a call. The follow-up step is a great time to check in with them to see if there is more you are capable of helping with, or if there are things you said you would do and haven't yet had the chance to get done for them. This type of contact can continue to increase their feelings of connectedness and share your ongoing support. There's evidence that even a simple form of reaching out, like sending a kind text or a letter, can potentially reduce their risk for suicide. Studies have shown a reduction in the number of deaths by suicide when following up was involved with high-risk populations after they were discharged from acute care services. Studies have also shown that brief, low-cost intervention and supportive ongoing contact may be an important part of suicide prevention. So, what I'm asking you to do is think about what you would want if you were struggling with these thoughts and reach out in a way you yourself would appreciate. So look, as we wrap up here, I can't help but feel a strong sense of hope from what will come about as a result of this awareness training. And that has zero to do with me and everything to do with what I believe each of you will do as a result of watching this and focusing in on prevention opportunities for both yourself and your coworkers. You have to realize the amazing blessing it is to impact someone's life for good. And if you're the one needing that blessing, I'm going to encourage you to allow yourself to receive it. As I said in the beginning, and it's something that can't be said enough, you're worth the investment and you're never too far gone. You have value and you're loved, whether you can see it right now or not. So cling to that truth. And those of you watching, seek to help others cling to that same truth. I also need you to realize that you're not alone in this. There are amazing groups out there with trained staff to help you or a coworker in a time of need. Please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. You can also get on their website for some amazing stories of survival. They also have a chat line if you feel more comfortable messaging a trained professional. Either way, use these resources as you need to. We all need help from time to time, and you're worth the investment. And with that, I want you to know that whether or not we've ever met, we care about you. We do these trainings each month with this type of content to remind you that you're thought of and that we only want the best for you. Whether that's your physical health or your mental health, we want your entire being to be healthy. I look forward to seeing you in the next training. Please don't hesitate to call us or email us with any questions related to this content. That is a part of this service after all. Have an awesome day.